The reading is from Matthew's Gospel, chapter 18, beginning at verse 15. Jesus said, "If another member of the church sins against you, go and point out that fault when the two of you are alone. If the member listens to you, you have regained that one. But if you are not listened to, take one or two others along with you, so that every word may be confirmed by the evidence of 2 or 3 witnesses. If the member refuses to listen to them, tell it to the church. And if the offender refuses to listen even to the church, let such a one be to you as a Gentile and a tax collector. Truly I tell you, whatever you bind on earth will be bound in heaven, and whatever you loose on earth will be loosed in heaven. Again, truly I tell you, if 2 of you agree on earth about anything you ask, it will be done for you by my Father in heaven. For where 2 or 3 are gathered in my name, I am there among them." One of the most painful things I encounter when talking to a family before a funeral is to discover that there is a son or a daughter of the person who's died who isn't involved because there was a family argument at some point. To me, as an outsider, it often seems to be over something quite small that, had it been resolved quickly, would long ago have been forgotten. I sometimes wish everyone could have seen, as I have, a son creeping into the back of the chapel at the crematorium after the service had started, and afterwards, when everyone else had gone out, going up to the coffin, gripping it as hard as he could and sobbing, because it was now too late to make things right. Jesus talked about resolving conflicts in the passage we heard from St. Matthew's Gospel. There is a little issue with Jesus talking about the church at this point, because the church only started after his ascension at Pentecost. But however you explain it, the principle of what he said still stands. Whenever we fall out with someone, whether it's a member of our family, a friend, a work colleague, or someone in our church, the best way to sort it out is to talk with them. That sounds obvious, but it is sometimes really the hardest thing of all to do. It doesn't mean thinking, I'm going to give them a piece of my mind and expect that that will make them realize that we're right and they're wrong. That approach is likely to make things worse rather than better. Similarly, sending them a letter or an email in the same spirit might briefly give us the satisfaction of telling them what we think, but afterwards there will be an even bigger gulf between us. If we want to resolve things, we have to be clear that the outcome has to be right and to feel right for both of us. When we agree to talk, we each need to describe as fairly as we can what we think has gone wrong and avoid blaming or criticizing each other. We should explain our own thoughts, assumptions and feelings, and we should not imply that the other person ought to have known them already. We must allow them to describe and explain things from their perspective. It's very tempting to argue with someone when we don't agree with what they're saying about us, but we have to hold our tongue and to listen carefully, even when we don't like how they've interpreted something. And if they criticize us, ascribe motives to us that we didn't have, or vent their negative feelings towards us in some other way, we must hold back, remembering that if we react and respond in the same fashion, we'll be back at square one. The most we should say is, that isn't how I see it. Staying calm and accepting our own part in what went wrong is more likely to encourage another person to behave in the same way. None of this is guaranteed to work. If the other person doesn't want to engage with us one-to-one, then sometimes it will help to involve a third party, someone whom we both respect, not to judge who is right and who's wrong, but to get the discussion between us going and on the right lines, avoiding criticism and blame, and acknowledging mistakes and misunderstandings. It's humbling to be offered an insight into how someone else sees us. It can feel humiliating. Our pride, which often disguises a deeper insecurity, can get in the way of accepting someone else's way of looking at a situation and seeing that we were wrong to some extent as well. Sadly, that pride can be our undoing. It splits families, friendships, and churches. In the verses that precede the passage we heard, Jesus talked about the lost sheep that went astray and the joy of the shepherd when he found it. When we do resolve a breakdown in a relationship, there's a joyous feeling mixed with sorrow for what went wrong. I've had to fight back tears when I've come to that point. Getting there is never easy, but my goodness, it feels so much better when we do.